This is Shrikant Sare. So in this lesson, we are going to learn about the simple C program. Okay. So first, let me write a few statements related to a simple C program. Okay. So typically, every C program in the world starts with these lines, which are known as header files. Okay. So hash include the most commonly used header files are these stdio.h, and then hash include conio.h. okay, so conio.h or conio.h or console input output.h. okay, so these two things are the most commonly seen in every most commonly used header files in every C program. Okay, so next statement would be this one, int main. I'll explain you each and everything why we have to take all these things. CLR SCR, which is used for the purpose of clearing the screen. Next, printf /n hello world. Okay, so printf /n hello world or something like this message, and then get ch. Okay, get ch, and finally every C program ends with the statement known as return 0. Okay, so this is the most simplest possible C program in the world. If you look into, we'll explain each and every line written in this program here. Okay, so the first, as we said, that every C program starts with these two lines, which are known as header files. Okay, which are known as header files. Okay, so why in the world we have to write these header files? You might get a doubt here. So why? Because so C language does not have built-in functions. Okay, so there is a lot of things to be discussed straight away. We cannot discuss all those things in the first lecture itself. So first and foremost, C language is known as a structure-oriented programming language. Okay, so I'm writing here. There are C is known as structure-oriented or procedure-oriented programming language. Okay, structure-oriented or procedure-oriented programming language, which means that structure-oriented. To counter this one, C++, the next level is C++, which is known as object-oriented programming language. Okay, so to counter this one or whatever the drawbacks are there in structure-oriented language were eliminated, and object-oriented programming language like C++ or Java came into existence. Okay, so what do you mean by structure-oriented? You might get a doubt here. The general common misconception is that structure-oriented means the program contains structures or is structurally defined or something like this. So all those things are not correct. The structure-oriented means the problem is being divided into sub-programs or functions. Okay, so typically if you take this small C program, here we have the main is known as a function. So main is known as a function, and CLR SCR is another function. If you call main as a function 1, CLR SCR is function 2. Printf is another function. Printf can be considered as function 3. Get_ch is another function. Get_ch is another function. So if you take this small hello world simple program also, we have totally, including the main function, 1, 2, 3 and 4 functions we have. Okay, so we can say that typically a C program is a collection of functions. Okay, it's a collection of functions, either predefined library functions. You got my word here. I am using a predefined library functions or user defined functions. So we will look into what is user defined functions. There is a dedicated chapter there is a dedicated chapter for functions in C programming language. A C program is a collection of functions, either predefined functions or library functions. So this word is very very important to us. So library functions are written inside these header files. Okay, so this word is connected to this header files here. Okay, so this means that so this is a library function. CLR SCR is a library function, is a lib function. I'm writing here library function, and get_ch is another library function. Get_ch is another library function, and printf is another library function. Okay, printf is another library function. Okay, so here we have three different library functions are there here, and all these library functions are defined inside these header files. Okay, so C language does not have built-in support at the language level for various functions. It relies on standard libraries. Okay, C standard library, C language relies on C standard library. Okay, C standard libraries. C standard libraries are nothing but these header files. Okay, so nothing but these header files or whatever the definitions. Okay, so each header file, if you take this one, stdio.h, is also known as standard input output.h. Okay, so stdio.h is also known as standard input output.h. Okay, standard input output, and conio.h is known as console input output. Okay, console input output.h. Okay, so these two header files, if you take the CLR SCR function is defined under this standard library header file conio.h, and if you take get_ch, it is defined under this standard library header file conio.h. If you take printf, it is defined under this stdio.h, which is another standard header file. Okay, so if you want to use those functions or predefined library functions within your C programs, you're not allowed to use without declaring these include files in the beginning of the program before the main. Okay, so before writing the main function, which is known as entry point for the execution of the program, I'll tell you within a few minutes. So if you want to use CLR SCR, you need to include this library header file, because this library function is defined under this header file conio.h, and if you want to use this printf function, you have to include this header file stdio.h, because this function is defined under this header file. Okay, so that is all about the header files. And next, coming to the main. Okay, so main function is known as entry point. Okay, main function is known as entry point for the execution. Entry point for the execution of the program. So entry point, I have used the word entry point here. So what is entry point? Even though if you are writing a 10,000 lines of program, a C program, a huge C program, there should be some entry point from where the execution should begin. Okay, so in our program, so main is considered as, not only in our program, in any other language like C++ or Java, main is always considered as the entry point for the execution. Okay, so main can have a return type. Here int is known as return type here. So return type, so default return type is int, but according to the standards, return type. Okay, so it is a standard that main will always return an integer only, and to corresponding this one, this is a return statement. The return statement is added because we have return type is int. Okay, so we have explicitly said that it is going to return an int, since 0 is an integer. This is not O, this is 0. Okay, so this is 0. It is a good convention of returning 0. Okay, returning 0. Okay, so int is a return type. The main in C will always have integer as a return type. So if you are writing int here, you must include this statement return 0 at the end of the program. Okay, so next, coming to the main function, I have just said that it is the entry point for the execution of the program. So even though beyond this main function you can have n number of lines of code, we can declare functions or loops or functions, you can keep on writing functions, user defined functions, you can have 10,000 lines of code also. You'll always have the execution starts with the main function. Okay, and then we have this CLR SCR function, which is defined under this standard library header file hash include conio.h. The purpose of CLR SCR is to clear the screen. Okay, CLR SCR is used for clearing the screen. Okay, so if you are using the most modern compilers like Visual Studio or Dev C++, or so many compilers are there, tools are there. Compiler is nothing but a software tool which takes your source program and converts it into a machine code. Okay, so today we have a Visual Studio or Code Blocks or Dev C++, so many things are there. You can use those IDEs. They are calling now as IDEs. No more people still use Turbo C also. Turbo C++ is there for us. Okay, so if you are using modern tools like Visual Studio, there you don't need this function, and also this is a deprecated or somewhat outdated kind of thing. And printf is the most commonly used standard output function, which is used to place some text. Okay, so whatever you are writing within the printf statement, within these quotations, it's automatically transferred to the standard output device, which is monitor. Okay, standard output device, which is monitor. The sole purpose of this statement, get to ch. Okay, so for example, if you are compiling and executing the program, so you might want to see the output or the result. Okay, so if you don't use this statement, the output window in most of the cases of IDEs, whatever you are using, it automatically disappears. And if you want to make that output window wait until you give any character from the keyboard as input. Okay, so for this purpose we have taken this getSH statement, and return 0 is nothing but as we said that the main, according to standard convention, the main function will always return an int, and it is a good convention to add the return statement at the end, and with 0, which is a good convention to follow. Okay, if you take some programs, they don't use main here, they might write something like this, something like void main or something like this, and they don't have in those cases you don't need a return statement here. Okay, but this is not a standard anymore. There are some standards of writing programs, and there are some conventions to be followed while you are writing a program. So according to those standards and conventions, it's always int should be added to the main, and there should be a return statement with 0 as returning 0. Okay, so 0 means it is a good convention. It is followed because to tell the operating system, the compiler will report to the operating system that the execution of the program went well. Okay, so this is all about a simple hello world program. Hope you like this lecture. Feel free to give your feedback in the comment section, and see you in the next lesson.